Happy New Year, happy 2025 to all of our listeners and viewers out there. So, welcome back to the Inner Circle podcast where real estate meets real life, hosted by yours truly, your Home Girl Jillian. We are coming to you live on intellectualradio.com, YouTube, and across all of my social media platforms. And don't worry if you missed the live show today. This episode and all others will be available to stream on intellectualradio.com, their YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and then all of my social media platforms. So you can listen anytime, anywhere. So the Inner Circle podcast is your ultimate destination for real estate talk about real estate. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, an aspiring investor, or someone seasoned in buying, selling, or flipping homes, each week we dive into real-life challenges and opportunities in the real estate world and explore how they impact you. So why is this podcast so important to me and to, I hope, everyone out there watching? It's because real estate isn't just about buying or selling. It's connected to so many parts of our lives, from building generational wealth and finding stability to creating a space where you can call home. So along the way, we all have experiences and lessons that can help each other grow and succeed. And that's why we're here to share them. So today we're bringing you another empowering episode filled with tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your journey. So we also want you to be a part of the conversation. So call us live at 708-223-8953 with your questions, your thoughts, and your experiences. So don't be shy. Your question might just help someone else out there. So today's episode focuses on the biggest keys to real estate success and wealth building at a young age. So understanding and navigating the mortgage process, whether you're dreaming of owning your first home or diving into real estate investment, knowing how to prepare for and secure a mortgage is crucial in making those decisions and those dreams a reality. So home ownership isn't just about having a place to call your own, but it's also a powerful tool for financial freedom and long-term wealth. So I'm excited to welcome my guest today, JuWaun Hampton, who is a senior home lending advisor for Chase and a real estate investor under the age of 30. JuWaun brings a wealth of knowledge and firsthand experience, and he's here to share valuable insights on how Generation Z can take smart steps towards home ownership, shatter myths about buying property, and start building wealth early through real estate. So I want to take this time to welcome JuWaun to the show.
Thank you, Jillian. That was a very warm introduction. I appreciate the intro. But like you said, we want to delve into this conversation and just discuss how we can really promote home ownership at a younger age, and also talk about some useful tips that'll, kind of set the foundation for any young home buyer that's, looking to get started in the process. So I'm excited to get this started.
Absolutely. So let's start by telling our listeners and our viewers a little bit about you. So your background, we can get into where you went to school, how you decided to get into mortgage lending, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So my start was very, it was very organic in a way, but it was also planted long before I even knew it. My father, started in mortgage lending 25 plus years ago. I was a kid, I watched him. He was, kind of a mentor and someone that I looked after, or looked up to, I should say. And, just kind of seeing the work that he put in and, the things that he strived for, it kind of set the foundation for me. So when I did go to college, I did start with the idea of, thinking that I wanted to, be some type of financial advisor or have some, some job within the capacity of finance. So I did start off as a finance major, and then later, kind of figured out, do I want to be a financial advisor? Like, is this something that I really want to do? And so at that time, it was my junior year at college, and I went to school at Benedictine University, which is a private school in Laos. And that's where I completed my, 4-year degree. But it wasn't until my junior year until I actually started to think more about what it is that I wanted to do for a career. And then I started to mull over the idea of human resources, because I just love the idea of dealing with people, and kind of, overseeing, but also figuring out ways to help people. So I did kind of shift over into more of a human resource focused curriculum. And then that's where I finished my 4-year degree. So I ended up getting a business administration and management and organizational behavior.
Nice.
And then after that, at my school, they had a program as a 4-in-1 program that allowed you to get your master's degree with just 1 extra year. So after I finished the undergrad, I went directly into my grad program where I studied. It was a master's of business administration program. And that's where I kind of, thought to myself, for me, I used that year as a learning year to kind of, again, further push myself forward to, what type of career I wanted. Although I didn't know if I wanted to do human resources or I wanted to do something more finance focused, I wanted to keep my options open. And so I thought getting a generalized, MBA degree that allowed me to, get knowledge in all these different areas. It touched on everything from accounting to marketing to management, all the topics that you need to know to be a successful, employee, business owner, whatever it may be. It gave me those tools in that year. And so as I finished that, at the time I was trying to, land a full-time job to get started in my career while I was in grad school. But the COVID-19 pandemic hit. It was right at the time where I started my grad program. And so as I was looking to, land a full-time gig, it was, very difficult. And so, for a long time, I didn't necessarily have a job, but I was a full-time grad student. So that kind of was my priority and focus at the time. But for my own purposes and my own aspirations, I wanted to get started in the field that I was going to ultimately be working on. So that didn't happen. And so I continue to continue to look at the job market, continue to look at the openings. And then it was a conversation that I, ended up having with my father, who kind of mentioned of a program that, was being started at the company that I'm with now, which is, the largest bank in the U.S. They had a junior loan officer program that allowed new entrants into mortgages to be able to, go through a 9-week training program before you even enter a branch or start to take customers. Go through this 9-week training program, learn the basics, the foundation of mortgages, how to take an application, what is a 1003. Like, it started at the very basis. What does mortgage mean, right? And so that 9-week program, really set the foundation for the knowledge that I have today, and that I'm able to build upon that afterwards. But, that junior loan officer role gave me my start to the industry, because if you think about, 20 years ago, I don't know that there were many junior loan officer roles, right? So this was a position that allowed me to really learn, take the knowledge in, and not be so focused on, my next meal or, my next deal. So it was just kind of a learning. And then they also paired us with a mentor, which I still use today, with all my other sources of people that I go to. So they really kind of, gave us a foundation to start on, but also gave us a support system that we can also, kind of talk about, our questions, things that we need to know to help us, kind of move forward and be successful in this business. And then that is, essentially my genesis to home lending. Again, like I said, it started very long ago when I was a kid, and that seed being planted subconsciously, but just kind of seeing, the people around me, what they were doing, it kind of motivated me to also take control of my future and kind of, have some type of control of your business in a way. So that's in short, that's my start to lending and kind of a background story of me.
No, that's great. I mean, what I heard you talk about is there's a legacy, right, within your family that you're kind of continuing on to build in this lending. I know your father has his own company, and you've now said you're trying your, no, I don't want to say trying your hand, but you started your career at one of the biggest mortgage lending industries or companies in the country. So that's good. I'm sure you're gaining all types of experience. And so I want to kind of know, as you join Chase, how are you working with home buyers? Because I know you're working with a lot of first time home buyers. We just to kind of let everybody know, JuWaun and I just completed a deal together about 2 weeks ago. We helped first time home buyers buy their first home in the western suburbs. And so he was amazing to work with. So I want to shout out to him and his expertise, his communication. We partnered really well, and the deal went smoothly. But I just want to, so tell me, how are you working with first time home buyers? How are you educating them? And then we'll kind of get into what tips and tricks you can give them and offer some of our listeners and viewers that are interested in buying their first home.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the biggest thing for me, and the thing that I find most valuable is that initial consultation, right? Like I take that call very seriously whenever I'm getting introduced to a new client, whether it be from a realtor referral or whether it's a walk-in client at the bank. Whatever it may be, I take that first impression in that first conversation very seriously, and I try to do my most educating in that process, because that's at the point where the client has decided that this is something that they want to venture to see what they can get qualified for, but also to understand where they currently stand. If it's not going to be now, what does my timeline look like? And so what I kind of do is I start with the foundational pillars of mortgage, and I explain, all right, this is what we're going to cover in this conversation. And then I like to check with the client to see if they're comfortable with moving forward and discussing these things, because mortgages, we need to know your full financial picture, because things can come up in the process later on that you may not think it's important for us to know, but it turns out to be detrimental.
So transparency is key, right? We tell first-time home buyers and just buyers in general, when you're talking to us and talking to a mortgage lender, explain everything. Absolutely. Don't hide anything, because those are the things that come back when we're under contract, right? And we find out that, oh, you have this debt, or you were having this money over here and you didn't claim it. So people, be transparent out there when you're talking to us. Yeah. It's just my tidbit.
For sure. No, definitely transparency is key. We're on the same team as well. Right. Like I think what buyers don't understand is that as your loan officer, as your realtor, your attorney, we're all on the same side. We all want to get this deal done for you, for our own reasons. Like, we are working together. So it's best that you do, just be upfront and honest, because that'll allow us to kind of solve it, at that point. But back to kind of like the foundational pillars that I like to discuss is credit, income, assets, and collateral. Right? Those are the foundations to any mortgage and any application. Right? We have to assess your credit worthiness. We need to know that your credit score does meet the minimum that's required, which in most bank cases is a minimum of 620. So we do need to pull your credit report to assess, your worthiness, right? And then next, we're going to look at your income and employment to determine stability, but also to determine your ability to manage this new debt that you're looking to take out. And then next, we're going to look at your assets, right? How are we going to, fund this down payment? Or do we need grant programs? Do we need to source funds via a gift from a family member? A lot of people don't know what other options are out there. So the asset portion is very critical in determining, what you can afford to purchase. Because the bigger down payment, the more that you can borrow. The lesser down payment, the more tighter that we're going to be. And then it kind of goes back to the income piece, right? You kind of loosen it up with a bigger down payment on what you can manage. And then the last piece is collateral, right? The property. What type of property are you looking for? Is it a single family residence? Is it a condo? Is it a multi-family? Because those are underwritten differently. They all have different guidelines that accompany them. So we need to understand what you're looking for. We need to determine your worthiness to borrow, your ability to manage debt and repay. And these are just, ways that we assess risk when we're deciding whether or not lending to you is a good idea or not. And so those are just kind of like the foundational pillars that I like to discuss in just those four items in a quick, 10-15 minute call, and then allow time for the client to, ask their questions, because first time home buyers, they do have a lot of questions. And I'm all for, giving the information out.
So, and I know because we get these questions at our home buyer seminars, or just as we're talking to people about buying. But as far as credit, I kind of want to, like ask micro questions to the pillars, right? So, new home buyer, I'm coming to you. I don't know what my credit needs to be. So, what are you telling me?
Yeah, you need to go and get your credit report. You need to access your credit report. You can access it from any of the three bureaus, which is Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get one free report each year for each of those three. Pull that, because you do need to understand what is reporting. All right. You don't want to get to the mortgage application, get your credit pulled, and now you have all these items popping up that you're unaware about. So you definitely want to be able to access your credit report ahead of time to be able to also understand and assess your financial readiness, right? Am I in a good position? Do I meet the credit score standard? Do I meet that requirement? And if not, then I need to take a few months to kind of clean up these, items that may be misreporting or, not accurate. And it does take a process from that point. It could be anywhere from 30 to 45 days before you can get, something that's incorrect, removed from the report. So definitely want to start with accessing your credit report. You can also use the free online tool, Chase Credit Journey. Like, that's a good tool that is readily available in your Chase mobile app. And if you're looking to, again, understand your financial health and see what is, potentially reporting, that'll be a good start for any first time homebuyer that's, looking to move forward with the process.
So let's say I'm like one of your friends, right? That's interested in buying. So, but I'm saying, JuWaun, what does my minimum need to be? Because that's what everybody wants to know. Now, I know in the real estate industry, a lot of times we will start off at 580, right? Is what we're saying. Oh, you can qualify for a mortgage at 580. There's so much that goes into that 580.
Exactly.
So, honestly, on a minimum, would you tell people you're in a good position at 620, at 640 to get started?
I would say this. The minimum score requirement at most banks will be 620. Are you in a good position being at just 620? No. If you want to, give yourself the best terms, the best loan options, you want to be higher, right? I would say anywhere from 690 and above would be a good aiming point for anyone that's in the lower credit score bracket and looking to improve on it. Aim for 690, and then you should you'll better position yourself in terms of terms and what comes along with that credit score. Because like you said, at 580, there's a lot of caveats and a lot of things that you don't realize go into the underwriting process. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to meet other certain requirements in terms of debt to income ratio, housing, front end ratio. There's just little different nuances that kind of go with those scores. So I try to be mindful about that conversation and navigating the credit conversation, because I'm not a credit expert. Mm-hmm. I can only talk through my experiences, but I would say, definitely want to get your credit score as high as possible, and just set yourself up for better terms when it comes to it.
And we're not saying that you can't get it done at 580, because I've had buyers that have had a 580 credit score or a 620, but like you said, it does come with different terms or different requirements that the lender or the underwriters want those buyers to perform. So we're not saying, you absolutely have to be at a 680 or higher in order to get it done. But, rates are going to be impacted by a 580 or a 620. Your interest rate may be higher, right? So getting that credit score up will impact things like that.
Yeah, interest rate may be higher. They may require a bigger down payment, right? You may have to get a cosigner for, debt to income purposes. But, that's something that I certainly like to dive into and make sure that the buyer is fully aware of at the onset of the conversation as opposed to later down the road. So we want to have, a discussion about your options and what you are kind of, looking at as we get closer to getting under contract.
Got it. And then as far as income, what would you say, like, and especially in today's day, in the world that we're living in, the economy that we're living in, and this might be a hard question to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So minimum income, especially for those that are starting off after college, maybe you've been working for 2 years, because we know in order to qualify for a mortgage, minimum 2 years working W-2, or if you're a 1099 employee, you don't have a self-income. But what is, like, in today's day, what are you seeing as the minimum for income in order to be able to afford a home?
Yeah, well, that question is a tough one to answer.
Right.
I've seen incomes, vary, right? Like it really depends on what the loan is, right? Because we're basing it off the loan amount and what that payment is going to amount to. So it really just depends. I mean, I can say this in terms of how we look at it from a debt to income perspective is most loan scenarios or most loan options, they cap you at a 50% debt to income ratio. So 50% of your gross monthly income, right? Before taxes, before deductions, that's what we're looking at, as the loan officer or the underwriter. We're going to give you full credit for that income that you earn before taxes and deductions. And then from that point, what you could do, because you've already accessed your credit report, you can go through it and see what is reporting on a monthly basis, right? What are those payments that are reporting monthly? You can subtract that number from your gross monthly income. And then once you have subtracted that number, you just divide that income by 2.
Okay.
So that's how you kind of figure out what you can afford from a, housing payment standpoint.
Got it. I think we've got a caller in, so it's probably a caller that has a question in terms of what we're talking about. So we're gonna go ahead and answer.
Sure.
Let's see. So, caller, can we have your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name is Malcolm. I was calling from Bloomington. How are you today?
We're good, Malcolm. What's your question?
I was calling in just to see if, given the challenges of student debt and high home prices, what strategies could someone in Gen Z focus on? I'm 22. I just graduated college.
Okay, that's a yeah.
So I'm wondering, what can we focus on just to successfully enter the real estate market?
Yeah, that's a good question, Malcolm. Thank you so much for that. Yep. Okay, JuWaun.
Yeah. So, the challenges, that we see with student loan debt, it does impact affordability, right? I'm gonna be completely honest. It impacts your purchasing power. It impacts what you can be able to afford. But I think what a lot of buyers don't know is, kind of how we look at student loans, right? So if that student loan is in deferment or declared natural disaster or whatever it may be, you don't have a payment that you are required to make. We look at that debt at 0.5% of its balance, right? So anyone got their calculator out?
I don't right now. We've got some other people in the studio. Maybe somebody can get their calculator out.
Just for an example, right? Let's say you have $20,000 in student loan debt. Let's multiply that by 0.5%. What do we get? $100 a month, right? So that's the number that we're going to account for in terms of your debt obligation, right? There's no payment reporting. We know with deferment, the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of student loans were impacted. And we know that there are still talks about some student loans being forgiven. What we're doing as a bank and how we look at it is we're going to take that 0.5% method if no payment is reporting. But navigating it, I would say, some clients, they save up a lot of money, right, to either for a down payment, or maybe they're saving to maybe pay off a chunk of student loan debt. I would say you're probably better off going through the process with a mortgage advisor to really see what your options are and where you stand. Then from there, they will be able to best advise you on whether or not you should, focus on paying down the student loan debt, or if you are still able to qualify even with the student loan debt, based on what your home goals and what it is that you're looking to afford. It's definitely a challenge. It's something that has impacted a lot of first time home buyers that have just recently graduated or whatever the case may be. But it's a challenge that I think can be overcome if we just take the necessary steps and kind of start early and starting the conversation with that expert on the other side.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that and especially for somebody like Malcolm, who's 22, just graduated, and I don't know if he started his career yet or where he's going, but if you have the goal of owning a home, right, you want to talk to a real estate professional or mortgage professional to learn these things.
Absolutely.
Even as you go and you start your career, right? Because that impacts savings goals. Like, how am I going to save? What do I need to be doing? Like filing my taxes for those 2 years. There's things that you need to be doing as you're starting your career that will prepare you and set you up to be able to go buy that home. We all know homeowners. I've met homeowners that 25, 26, and they bought homes, buildings, whatever, but they got with somebody early on, or real estate was being pushed on to them. They watched people buy real estate, and they kind of learned the certain things that they need to do to set themselves up to be ready to buy real estate.
Absolutely.
And that's why I always push it's so important to talk to us in the industry so we can help you give strategies and tips on being able to be prepared. So you don't get to the point where you want to buy and now I've got to sit and wait 2 more years because I'm not ready. Right. So that's important.
Yeah. So last thing, Malcolm, I think what you should take away from that conversation is start the conversation as early as often. If it's something that you really want to do in the next couple of years or later down the road, start the conversation early because you don't want to disqualify yourself and miss out on that equity building that you could start as soon as possible. So have the conversation. Obviously you want to assess where you currently stand and your ability to afford a mortgage and take on that responsibility, but start the conversation and see where that takes you.
No, that's an absolutely good point. So, and speaking to somebody like Malcolm, helping hear your story on how you bought your first properties, because I know you own a condo and a multi-unit building in the city of Chicago. So talk to us a little bit about why you decided to go that route in real estate, and then how you were able to achieve those purchases.
Yeah. So the first purchase was a multi-unit, like you mentioned, in Chicago. It's a 3-unit building. I purchased, back when I turned, I was 25 years old at the time.
Wow. That's
and
great.
I started the process as soon as I got hired on, at Chase. Because again, you mentioned like the work history and all that stuff. There are caveats to that. There are exceptions, right? If you were a student, you can use that in place of that 2-year requirement for the work history. So we kind of pieced that together. But what I did was did an FHA loan, right? 3.5% down, which a lot of buyers may not be aware of out there. But, because it was my first home, I was able to purchase as a primary residence, 3.5% down, occupy 1 unit and rent out the other 2. So not only was it...
Not to interrupt you. So that is what's known to all of our young people that are listening and watching as house hacking, right? That's house hacking.
Yeah. So I was able to get, qualified based on, the 3.5% down payment, but also the estimated market rent that I would receive for those 2 units. Now, because those 2 units were already leased out, we just went off of the current, lease agreements that were in place. And so I don't think a lot of buyers are aware that, you probably can afford it once you're getting credit for, the rental income that you're set to receive on that. So think about it as you're offsetting your mortgage payments with the additional rent that you'll receive. So that option made the most sense because, again, I was a first time home buyer. I didn't have any plans to rent at all. That never became a thought or an option for me. Like I said, the seed was planted long ago, and through the guidance of my parents, and thank God for them, they kind of pushed that into they pushed that seed into the forefront, and it became a reality for me. So the idea was to invest first, and then circle back and buy a primary residence that I would later occupy. And I was able to do that August of 2023. So we're talking the first purchase took place in February of 2022. Living it a year, then you rent out the third unit as well. Now you have an all income property. You're paying your rents is covering the mortgage and then some. So from that point, there's different ways that you can go about obtaining property number two. If you have built some equity, like a lot of buyers have, over the last couple of years, just with price appreciation, they've been able to tap into home equity to be able to source either cash down payment for that secondary purchase. And so I think, and that's another house hacking, route that you could take. You could take the idea of, using the equity in that property to purchase property number two, or you could simply, convert that primary to a rental property and collect all the rent and kind of use that to, supplement your income and allow you to qualify for that real true dream home that you're looking for. So it's all about the process that you take. I do think for any first-time home buyers that are looking to invest, you may want to look into investing first as opposed to buying a home for yourself, because the options that are available to you are probably more valuable to take at the front end than the second time around, because those requirements become a lot more aggressive and a lot bigger.
Yeah, I get that question a lot from not even our Generation Z folks, those that are 30 and under. I get it from people that are 40 and up, that've been renting for years and they want to buy a property. And they're like, I don't know whether I want to go the home ownership route or do I want to go the investment route, because I feel like home ownership, I'm just paying for this house, I'm sitting in it, but it's not necessarily making me money fast enough, right? So with investment, buying a multi-unit or even buying a single family home and renting it out, to me, the investment might be a little faster, right? And then when you start talking about building equity in that property and pulling it out or refinancing, that just it opens up the door for just other opportunities. So I wanted to kind of touch on refinancing because I don't think a lot of people know like how to go about that, what's involved in it, either refinancing or pulling out a home equity line of credit on your property to be able to whether you're doing renovations or to go buy something else. I get a lot of clients that use that method to go purchase other properties. So I don't know if you've done that. You kind of touched on that a little bit, but talk more about that.
Yeah. So personally, I have not done taken out any line of credits or done any cash out refinances. But recently there was an opportunity to refinance down to a lower interest rate. We all know that rates have been elevated for the last 2 years, going on 3, and we are expecting rates to be more stabilized here in 2025, but they will, I do think they'll remain higher for a little bit longer. And when we could see them slightly decline toward the end of the year, but it will be more stabilized, which I think just provides a more predictable market for potential buyers. But recently, the opportunity of refinancing down to a lower interest rate came up, and that was last September, where we saw a significant decline in interest rates. And I think that was, just with the uncertainty of the presidential election, how that can, play a role and factor into interest rates as a whole. but also the Fed began to cut interest rates. And so we know that mortgage rates move a lot faster than the Fed does. It moves off sentiment, it moves off, the words that are being used and the language, the path forward. It's a largely a guessing game. But once that opportunity came up, I signed on in August of 23 on a condo. Condo stuff does have higher interest rates, just based on the risk, at 7.375%. That was the rate that I closed on. In September of last year, was able to refinance down to 6.125%. So we're talking about over a full percent in reduction. And you want to know what that equated to in monthly savings?
Please tell me. I'm itching to know.
More than $450 a month.
Nice.
In savings.
That's nice.
So when buyers, tell me that they want to hold off, or if they are, mulling over if, this is something that they even want to do, and kind of just focused on interest rates, I just try to push the value of finding that dream home. And I think we talked about it at our closing, right? You marry the home, but you date the rate. And what that simply means is, marry the home, but you can always change your interest rate down the road. So secure the property, and then when the time comes, you'll be able to, take advantage of a rate drop. Or if you're like me, and I work in the industry, so I got my ears to the ground on it a bit more. So I'm able to have dialogue with clients and let them know, like, hey, the opportunity to refinance is going to be coming up, down the road. We're going to keep you in line for, potential refinance opportunity, because it helps. It helps. Every dollar helps in this economy. I mean, inflation is high, and inflation, although interest rates are higher, it doesn't account for home prices being higher as well, right? And inflation is looked at year over year, right? It doesn't look at what home prices were 20 years ago and say, hey, well, we're paying 10% rates on $150,000 home. Now that $150,000 home has doubled, and now you're looking at 7% on $300,000, and it's just caused an affordability issue. But I'm sure we'll probably touch on that as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to jump into that affordability, because I've heard from young people in my circle, my inner circle, that's family or friends, 20-year-olds that talk to me about real estate, because I know I'm a realtor, and affordability is a major issue. And that's why I kind of asked you about, as far as income, what would you say a minimum income has to be? And I know that's a tough question to answer, but affordability in this country right now is a major, major issue. And especially for our young people that are coming out of college and struggling to find a career or start a career, find a job. What's your opinion on affordability right now?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I've worked with many first-time home buyers. Just met with one yesterday, and just seeing some of the challenges that are ahead. Parental support isn't that high amongst our generation, and so it does produce a challenge in being able to afford something in this economy. I think just kind of going back to the income. I mean, I think you definitely give yourself the best chance to get what you're looking for by giving yourself, by kind of just laying the foundation early on. I can't tell a client, hey, go out and get a job that's paying you $200,000 a year. Like, if it was that easy, we
don't control, right? We
Right.
wish we could, right? Because we know what you would be able to afford,
right.
based on that. But yeah,
So to kind of speak on income, I think it's a tough topic, but I would just say, I would leave it at this: we are seeing the challenges. Home prices are still expected to increase, about 2 to 3% this year. There's still a shortage in supply, and demand is still there. It's created a frenzied market, super competitive. And I mean, I say that just to say that there are real challenges, and I'm not sure what we need to do to kind of make those challenges a lot easier on the buyers. But I do think it is something difficult that we're still trying to figure out how to navigate with this inflated rate market.
Yeah, and I think the economy and what happens over these next 4 years is going to play a part in that, not only for young people, but for people that are my age or older, as far as affordability, buying their first home or buying their second home, or even sellers. This doesn't just impact buyers. Affordability doesn't, it impacts sellers as well. My advice even to our colleague Malcolm, is whatever career, as you start to think about your career journey, yes, income requirements, because as if homeownership is on your list of life goals, I know I need to be making X amount of money.
Right.
So do I need to start looking at a career that pays me X amount of money, right? So I am able to afford a home. And I know that's a struggle because employment is still down. It's rough, and especially even for the young generation coming out of college or even just getting started in their careers. It's hard.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Wages haven't kept pace with the inflation.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is a bigger issue at hand. I don't have the answer, right? I'm one person, but I think there is a bigger issue in the economy today. Like we have to, this conversation is above our pay grade, right? Like wages aren't even, moving up with inflation. So I think that the issue kind of starts there as well. But like you said, kind of giving yourself, if you want to be a homeowner, and you have goals to or aspirations to, purchase a single family and, have a big yard, you want to give yourself the best chance at doing so. And you can start by, attacking your studies, picking a career path that'll, lead you to good fortune and hopefully, allow you to check off your goals.
Got it. What are some of the mortgage or lending myths that we can kind of debunk here today? Like, so 2 or 3 maybe that, and I always go to this, your down payment assistance programs, or which are commonly referred to as, that I hear from buyers are, oh, my cousin told me there's first time home buyer money. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, like you said, myths. Do I need 20% down? No, you don't need 20% down payment to purchase a home. The minimum requirement for any first-time home buyer is 3% down for a conventional mortgage. You still have the option of FHA, which is restricted to only primary residents. That is 3.5% down, but you can purchase a home with as little as 3% down. Now, you do want to also keep in mind that there are closing costs, which you could expect to be anywhere from 2 to 5% of the purchase price. So again, when you're assessing whether or not you're ready to, move forward in applying for a mortgage, please keep in mind that, there's a minimum down payment requirement of 3%, and then there will be closing costs associated with that. And then in terms of first-time home buyer grants, I always tell clients we don't have anything specific or specified to first-time home buyer grants at my company. What we have is a Chase home buyer grant that is available in selected areas, and it ranges from $2,500, $5,000 up to $7,500 that can be used on your down payment or closing costs. It'll first be applied to closing costs, and then anything remaining will go toward the down payment. But I personally don't work with any specific first-time home buyer programs. I know that there are some stuff out there in terms of other down payment programs, but the biggest tool that I'm pushing is our Chase home buyer grants, because there's no repayment. It's purely a grant. It's not a second lien, and it just is money off the top of your bottom line that allows you to get into the home with a lot less money down than you initially thought.
That's great. That's great. Any other ones?
Another myth. Trying to think of another question that I get often. I can't think of one right now.
That's fine.
I think the most common is the 20% down question, or do I need to have this, or I only need to do this.
And I think the credit score is, I want to say a myth, but it's just subjective. It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be another
credit score.
Yeah. Credit.
Do I need to have a 700?
Right. And then what are some of the common mistakes you've seen buyers make during the mortgage process?
Yeah. So common mistake is so sometimes when you're in the process, right, you're saving up for your down payment, right, and in that process you kind of need to leave that money to the side. So you're putting pressure in other areas, maybe credit. I've seen clients, and I've had this happen once, and it'll never happen again, but I had a client open up a credit card during the process, and it was flagged. And I mean, this was probably 2 years ago at this time, but it was right before Thanksgiving, and we were trying to hustle to get this closed before a holiday. And that had came up and been flagged by the underwriter. We had to source, get these documents, get an account statement, see if there's a balance, and add that into that to income ratio, which could have been detrimental to the deal as a whole, but luckily it was not. So I think a mistake that I see is, clients may be opening up a credit card because they're, again, trying to keep this money set aside for their down payment at closing. I've seen that happen where you're trying to save up for, reserves or whatever the case may be. That could be a common mistake that I don't know that all buyers are aware of. When you're applying for a mortgage, please know that your credit is still being monitored.
Absolutely.
And you will be alerted if another hard inquiry or lender checks it.
So have you had, because I know I have had these two happen to me over the last 7 years, have you had somebody buy a car or buy furniture?
Yes.
Okay. Those are like the two common things.
The car.
It's the car, and because their credit, you've improved. Most times people have improved their credit to be able to buy, and you start getting offers because your credit has improved, or it's just high. You might have came into the process where it was high, but you start getting offers and you get tempted. So I've had clients purchase a vehicle. I've had clients go and buy all their furniture for the house that they have not closed on yet, which has totally either I've had a loan canceled because of it, and I've had it delay a purchase because they've opened up a new line of credit, which is what you were saying. So yeah,
I've actually had two instances where a client actually purchased a car, and that was I wanted to pull my hair out, but I had to understand that the client, they weren't fully aware, and so I just had to do a better job of explaining that in the process. So like I said, it won't happen again, and but I think it's important that we do let clients know of, those pitfalls that could, present themselves as they're in the process.
Yeah. So in terms of searching for a lender, I know you work for Chase, which is, highly reputable and well known. But what would you objectively tell your friends and especially folks within your generation when you're shopping for a mortgage, look for these things? Because, I know you're going to promote Chase, but Chase might not be right for me. So what things should I be looking for to choose the right lender?
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily going to promote my company at all. I'm promoting myself. The trust factor for me, if I'm on the other side, if I'm the customer, I need to be able to trust the loan officer on the other side, trust that they're, doing things by the book, because there could be some, there's some shiesty people out there that could take advantage of you. I would just, kind of pay very close attention to the person, the individual, what the things that they're saying, because they'll try to talk you around in circles, or tell you not to worry about things. So you gotta maybe re-ask the question or rephrase it to get the answer that you're truly looking for. But also looking, once you actually are shopping for the mortgage itself, you definitely want to at least look at three competitors or three different options and really compare apples to apples. You want to look at your lender charge, right? What is the lender charging me for processing this mortgage loan? That's going to vary from each three that you selected. So you want to see who's charging the most, if they're charging you any points, if you're aware of points, and just make sure that you've done your due diligence on the lender aspect first. I wouldn't say shop solely for rate because you can always find lower, and then are you going to keep playing the game of going lower and lower? And I would tell a client that you can go with the cheaper route, but it could end up costing you a fortune in the end. So just I think you really need to understand who it is you're working with on the mortgage, because it is a joint effort. It's not just someone that's working for you. It's a joint effort. You should be involved, and you should want to know what's happening and taking place behind the scenes as well. So I just think it's more so a gauge of honesty, who's going to be transparent with you, as opposed to more so rate shopping. You want to get a good rate, but you don't want to just continue to aim for the lower of the three.
Right. So, JuWaun, as we kind of wrap up, I just want to know, what are because I'm curious, and I'm sure some of our viewers and our listeners are curious, but what is your real estate goals for like the next 5 years? I know you own property now. I'm curious because you started early. You're in an industry, so you get to you see things from a different perspective. We talked about generational wealth, or part of the show is talking about generational wealth. You come from a prior generation that's in the real estate market, right? So what are the goals that you have for yourself for the next 5 to 10 years? And then how, have you started thinking about your plan as to achieve them, financially, or just aligning yourself a different way to be able to purchase certain things or make certain real estate moves?
Yeah. So kind of the next plan or the next action is to purchase another investment property, potentially looking at selling the 3-unit, gained a lot of equity over the years. So potentially looking to sell that, but also acquire another property here in the interim. Started the process, got pre-approved. So we are putting some action toward that plan now. And then I think in the next couple of years is to, grow the portfolio, do my first flip solely on my own, as opposed to, because I've done flips. I've been a part of flip projects with my parents, but I kind of want to, start to, take what take the knowledge that they've passed along, and kind of implement it in real time. And, that's a difficult task, right? The flip project is a lot more advanced and, of a real estate investment tool as opposed to the buy and hold. So I think I want to, definitely look into that in the next 5 years, but also look at, converting the condo into a rental, and purchasing a single family, maybe kids in the future, marriage in the future. Mm-hmm. So we want to get a single family residence, something bigger to fit the growing family. And I think those would be kind of like the base goals that are in mind and kind of in the future. So to kind of recap, probably be selling the 3-unit in this year, purchasing a new investment property, looking to do a flip within the next 5 years, and then also purchasing a single family residence.
I love that. That's great. Yep.
And the keys are there, right? We got the doors to do so. So once you get the key, you just unlock the next door and, take that same approach, buy it, rehab it, live in it, sell it, whatever, access the equity. You gain a lot of options when you just have when you've acquired the property.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my kind of next steps and plans for the future.
Plan. Well, we are wishing you all the best with those plans. Last question is, what is your one piece of advice for anyone under 30 who's looking to buy or invest in real estate? So what is JuWaun Hampton's one piece of advice?
Yeah, my piece of advice was start early and often, and assess your financial readiness. I think a lot of purchasing a home takes a lot of, self-assessment. You need to sit down and really jot down on a piece of paper, where you stand and in order to hit those goals where you need to be. So I think, with starting early, you're able to figure out where you can improve at, and then make those necessary changes. But I think if you can at least have a conversation with a real estate professional, whether it be realtor or loan officer or real estate attorney, I think it'll be valuable, to your future success and, actually achieving those goals.
Yep, I agree. And just to kind of double back on that, I think mine is encouraging action and preparation. So like the best time is to start is now. So small steps leads to big rewards. So you have to start now. If these are things that you have your sights set on, start talking to people, so you can know what you need to do, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so if this is something you want, you've got to be able to go and find that information, and then to be able to, like you said, write these goals down and these steps in order to how I can get there. And then resources are your best friend, real estate professionals, family members that you've seen do these things, right? So talk to resources within your life, or even those that you don't know. I won't say within your life, but just, don't be afraid to go out there and find information and find people that can help you. And then I want to remind our listeners, our younger listeners, that real estate isn't just for the older generations, right? Because that to me is almost a myth too. You've got the age group under 30 that think, oh, I'm not going to buy something until I'm 35, or real estate is not for the older generations. It's a game changer at any age. And right now, within the world that we live in now, especially with the social media world, I mean, you're seeing more young people acquire real estate, whether they're flipping property, they're holding property, they're just doing a range of things. And I think that's because the information is out there. They're watching it now, right? So it's not for the older generations anymore. It is for any generation. And
for all to participate.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
It rewards those that start early.
Absolutely.
So, you said, start no better time than now.
Absolutely. Start now. So I want to thank you so much, JuWaun, for joining us today. Your insights have been so valuable and relatable for all of our young listeners, and even some of our seasoned listeners or viewers that are out there for navigating the world of real estate. So where can our listeners get in touch with you or work with you? Where can they contact you?
Well, as simple as this, I'll give out my cell number. You can also follow me on Instagram, JuWaun Hampton. I think it's JuWaun.Hampton. I don't know, but cell number, you can always contact me at 708-212-4767. That is my direct cell. You can also email me at JuWaun.Hampton@chase.com. That is my email address. And then you can always Google search me, JuWaun Hampton, home lending advisor, and it should pop up as the first item. So if you want to get in touch, I'm happy to connect with all, share knowledge, answer any questions that you may have, but look forward to having these real dialogues in the future. And thank you for allowing me to come on your platform and just kind of share my experiences to those that are listening.
Thank you, JuWaun. So that is a wrap for today's episode of the Inner Circle podcast. A big thank you to our guest, JuWaun, for sharing his insights and personal experiences on how Generation Z can prepare for home ownership, navigate the mortgage process, and start building wealth through real estate. JuWaun, your story and advice were incredibly motivating, and I know our audience is walking away with practical steps so they can take toward owning property and creating lasting financial success. Don't forget to tune in live every Saturday at 11 a.m. for another episode where real estate meets real life. As always, I'm your host, your Home Girl Jillian. Stay focused, stay intentional, and keep building your dreams. Thank you for tuning in to the Inner Circle podcast. I'll see you guys next week.